Lyndie, to the Why We Move podcast. It's a podcast dedicated to stories of social dancers out who are doing amazing things, not only on the dance floor, but out of the dance floor. And wanted to bring you on because I believe you are doing that as well, alone with just your story and how you got started dancing all the way to what you're doing outside of the dance floor in engineering.
Cool.
I know I kind of like threw you in. Those questions we're not going to do.
I was like, okay.
This is a pop quiz. What's the color of my underwear? Just kidding.
Your trick was you're not wearing any.
Oh, dang it. Just kidding. No, folks, I am wearing underwear. Promise. I remember this morning. Other mornings, not so much. All right, so let's get started. So I'd like to invite guests again on here who I think are doing awesome things. And I want to start with your story. Okay. So basically, the most vague question that I could ever ask is what got you into dancing and how you started dancing?
Like all great stories, it started because I met a guy. So I was actually at like a dance club for my friend's 21st birthday when I was in college. And the nightclub that we went to, unbeknownst to me, actually did a Latin dance on Friday nights from like, later I found out, from 7:30 to about like 10:30, 11. And so we'd gotten a table, and so we showed up there early to get situated at the table that we were staying at. And they were still all dancing. And so there was just like a bunch of people like doing dancing that I had never seen in like a nightclub before. And so my friends and I were like, oh, what's all this? Like, this is weird. Like, this was not what we were expecting in the least bit. And so I actually walked up to a guy and asked him to dance. I actually asked him and his friend, like, one of you guys want to dance? And so I started dancing with him. And this was actually after the Latin dancing had stopped. It was just regular club dancing. And so we danced for a little bit, and then he said that he had to leave. And I was like, okay, bye. And like I walked away, and then he actually chased me down and got my phone number. And so we kind of started seeing each other for a little while there. And one time he just mentioned offhandedly that he was going to go Latin dancing. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. And so he invited me along. And so I started going with him, his roommate, who was also the one that was there that night. And then my new roommate, who was somebody that was just a random roommate from when I started living in this student housing. And she was a really good Latin dancer. She actually still is an incredible dancer. Her name's Devaney. She is actually an instructor out in California. She's awesome.
Cool.
But so the four of us, we would start going dancing together. And we just kind of continued dancing together. And then when him and my relationship ended, like the four of us would still just go out dancing. And yeah, so.
Awesome. So it was like you got kind of swept in a way you got guided by said homie.
Yeah, no, It was really nice. He was a really good guy, just didn't work out. And then he actually graduated from college and like left. And so I stuck around in the dancing and like started getting more into it. Now I'm a better dancer than he is. So. Hey,
nice. Sorry, dog, if you're watching this. Got to get back on the dance floor. You got to practice those moves because Lindy's... That's awesome. So it sounds like you started with salsa and bachata in dancing. How did that go?
So Reno does a lot of like mixed nights. They don't really have like specific salsa and bachata nights, at least when I was learning to dance. And so it was kind of like learning both at the same time. I definitely got more into bachata faster than I did salsa. It was a little bit easier for me to understand. And I actually remember the exact moment that I realized that I was in love with bachata. It was during Prince Royce's Stand By Me song. I was dancing with somebody. I don't even remember who it was. But the music just really hit like me in the heart in a way that I was not expecting. And I was like, this is the moment that like I realized I loved to dance as much as I did.
Cool. Very cool. I've talked to a lot of people before and I've asked them this same question. And it seems like there's always that sweeping moment. It's like either a song, like for you in your example, or it's, stepping outside of the comfort zone in front of people for the first time and really like unleashing that part of within themselves to like go out and express themselves. Did you have any obstacles, maybe any challenges with that, since it is a very vulnerable thing to do, to go up and dance in front of people when you first started?
Not so much the social dancing. I was very fortunate that the places that I went to were very, very friendly and very, very welcoming to people that were all new. There's also a lot of, there's the Latin dance club at my college that So they were all like around the same age as me. A lot of them had started dancing around the same time as I did. And so we were all very much in the same boat of like, you know, skill level or like, you know, age range and stuff like that. And so it was really nice and like very comforting in that. I think where my challenges more came from was actually when I joined a performance team. I was raised very like religious and so very conservative and stuff. I personally was not as conservative as my parents would have liked me to have been, but it definitely took some getting out of my comfort zone to start expressing that and start dancing the way that like the song required and like that the song wanted us to do. And it definitely allowed me to feel a lot more comfortable in my skin.
When you say how the song wanted you to dance, what do you mean by that?
The dance routines that we had it was a ladies bachata team, and they were like sexual, they were sexy. My dance director had a history of burlesque dancing, so she would bring that kind of dance moves into the song. And you can't really be shy while doing burlesque dancing moves because they're not shy. They're very, you know.
Eccentric?
Yeah. And so it definitely took some getting used to like being out there and like in that way.
Cool. I see. Awesome. So you performed in Reno on a dance team. How long did you perform for, or how long were you on the performance team for?
I was on their performance team 3 years. Yeah, about 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah. They really loved being on the team with them. Like Mariah and Andrea are incredible dancers and they're incredible directors. So
Very cool. What about the performance team is it that interested you, like from the beginning and carried you all the way through those 3 years?
Well, the interest came from wanting to be a better dancer. I'd heard like a lot of people say that the best way to become a better like social dancer was to join a performance team. And it wasn't necessarily because they teach you the skills for social dancing, but they give you the basics technique that you need. And also you're just practicing constantly and, you know, you make more friends and so you get asked to dance more. And so it just kind of all like interacts with each other in a way that gets you that more experience a lot faster.
Gotcha. It seems like a lot of people I talked to, especially this last episode that I recorded with a few performers as well, said the same thing. Like they were given the tools in their tool belt to use in the social dance world through performing, through choreographs, through routines that helped them not only like feel empowered when they danced, but also like allowed them to really to explore what that is like in social dance. And I see like you can kind of see it clear as day sometimes, like, oh, that's a performer because they really move their bodies in a certain way, or they, you know, flash something really cool. And yeah, I always think it's so interesting. As far as now bringing in the social dance piece, what is the difference between social dance and performance dance? And do you believe that, I know you had already mentioned that it kind of feeds into the other, but do you believe that there's any cons with only performing or only social dancing or even mixing the two? Is there any obstacles with that?
So for the first aspect of it, of like how I view the difference between social dancing and performance dancing is very much the connection between the person that you're dancing with. Performance dancing, both people know exactly what's coming and when it's going to go. And, you know, they have certain beats that they need to hit and like just certain spots that they need to be at. And that is both the follow and the lead both know that's coming. And so you can do like really cool tricks because they're both expecting it. Social dancing, you don't have that. Like social dancing, you should be feeding off of the energy of each other and like interacting with each other. And, you know, it's impromptu. It shouldn't be a choreographed piece. It shouldn't be super flashy in the sense that like you're doing lifts and tricks and like all these things that, you know, the other person has to know what's going on in order to do them. So like that's how I distinguish the two really, is like, can you do this lead with somebody who you have never spoken to and you don't know if they have seen the videos that you've seen or anything like that? Can you do the same move with the exact same way with multiple different people?
Beautifully said. Yeah, I agree. It's, you know, I think you dance with maybe somebody who has freshly performed and they still kind of get in that mindset of like they're in a choreograph headspace. And it's like, maybe it's not as connected as somebody who just social dances or who primarily social dances or who just hasn't performed or whatever it may be. But it's interesting that you note that, because a lot of people have also told me the same thing. And I've heard that sometimes you lose the connection there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so interesting because, like, it's still a dance, right? But performatively, it's an expression of self with everybody versus an expression of self in a social dance with another person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's super interesting.
Yeah. Intermingling them, I think it's actually really important to have, like, a little bit of basis in both. Like, in my personal opinion, you can get away without doing performance dancing. The performance dancing, again, is nice because you get a little bit more technique and a little bit more, like, standards of, like, oh, this is how it's supposed to go. But it's not necessarily needed. Like, I have plenty of friends who have never actually even taken, like, a traditional dance class in any way. And they are absolutely incredible dancers. Like, their musicality is on point. Like, their connection with the people is great. Like, their ability to get you where you need to be and, like, lead you to it is absolutely phenomenal. And they've been dancing for, like, 20 years and just have never taken an actual class. Ooh. And it's all based on, like, them doing just social dancing. Yeah,
definitely. I think a lot of my upbringing, like, with people in my family and friends in that immediate circle had that experience. We just, like, I think my family, we didn't grow up around dance studios, nor did we really, like, have that kind of culture in us. We just like, music was just a big part of our culture. So we just, like, danced at parties, quinceañeras, weddings, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so never was there really a formal class. We just kind of, like, got up and learned it and just, like, figured it out on the dance floor. And I think that's a beautiful thing as well. I think whether you take classes or you don't, it's interesting that you can learn so much still on the dance floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's great. Performance dancing, I think if you do that without actually doing any social dancing, then you kind of, for lack of a better term, you get lazy because you expect people to know what's going on and not actually know how, like, to push on people's bodies or, like, give them the pressure that they need in order to actually do and support them in the move that you want them to do. Like, you're just expecting them to do it all on their own without any, like, guidance or help.
Right. Yeah, and that can cause some, like, gray areas or, like, even probably injuries and some miscommunication. Yeah. Agreed.
So I think getting a mixture of both is actually really nice because you get to see both sides of it.
It's like left brain and right brain working together.
Yeah.
That's interesting because, I mean, like, at the beginning of this episode, I kind of mentioned that we would go into engineering. This is a great segue into that because you're an engineer and you figure stuff out mathematically, like, in a very scientific way, yet you're a dancer and you're in the arts. So what kind of transition that was for you, or maybe if there was, or did it come naturally? Was there some hardships, obstacles, or whatever that you can think of that maybe helped you or maybe hindered you when you started dancing?
I definitely overthink when I dance, especially performance. Like, in my professional life, I am very much known as the person that will ask all the questions and, like, bring up any kind of concern that is necessary, even if it's something that doesn't actually end up being an issue. But, like, I always have questions and always have concerns, and I want to make sure that they're all thought of, like, regardless of what decision is being made. So that definitely has affected me with performance dancing, where I have to know every little detail, like where do both my hands need to be, where am I looking, where's, like, my foot, like, so that definitely is a little bit of a hindrance. I think it actually did help me a lot, though, because dancing is all physics, especially social dancing. When you're pushing on a body, like, you need to know where to push and how much force, and, like, if it's angled, if it's straight on, like, there's a lot of different ways that you can look at it. I mean, even in just the traditional, like, hold that you do, like a open position, where you want to have equal pressure to, like, what your partner is giving you. Like, that right there is just physics. That is, like, one of the 3 main laws of physics. So
I also overthink things, and I overthink things, and I think that's a tongue twister. So, but, like, as a lead, I'm always, again, like, there's a game of chess playing alongside a game of Monopoly, alongside a game of what's that one with you push the little ball in the middle and there's a dice and What is
Oh,
it?
Scrabble or Trouble.
Trouble. Yeah. So all those three games are happening in my mind while there's a person and a human being in front of me. So my face, you'll see me dance. I'm just like, or like I'm like I pucker my lips. I'm like thinking like. So all that to say that I think my what is it? My left brain is heavy at work, while my right brain is trying to like think of what artistically to do. And I think it's interesting to hear you as an engineer. You have that same problem. What has helped you, I guess, overcome those things? Because like I've danced with you and I see you dance, and like you're very fluid in your movements and you're very artistic and you like to like put in things that look great. So how can you explain that to me? Is it just come natural? I mean, like it could be
Some of
just
them,
that, you know?
Some of them are just muscle memory. A lot of like the styling I do is based off of like from the performances that I was in, just because I liked how they looked, I like how they feel. Like I know exactly like where things are going when I do them. A lot of it though is just me kind of trying to like close my eyes and actually just like feel the music and feel like what my partner is wanting me to do. I don't know if you've noticed this when we dance, but anytime I'm in close position with somebody, I actually close my eyes fully and I just try to like let my body like go where I'm being led to and not actually like try to guess what the next move is coming.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard of that technique a lot. I see a lot of people do that as well. It's and I've done that myself when I'm just now learning how to follow, and I feel like that helps me so much. Kind of turns off a sense and helps you like really get into your body.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what's the best piece of advice maybe you can give to people who might be struggling with the same thing, who think that they're only, right brain, that they only do science, only do math, only do structure, and are having a hard time getting into art. They feel like they're stuck in their body because they don't feel artistic or they don't feel expressive or they don't feel themselves. Like, can you give some piece of advice for the people listening to maybe help them branch out of that?
One of the first things is like you get to the point where your steps, your feet are muscle memory. Like you should be able to just do a basic to the song, not have like somebody else leading you or anything without thinking. Like as long as you can get to that, like I think realistically it gets a lot easier to get more comfortable and like play around with like how the other parts of your body move and stuff like that. Also taking classes, like, different styling of classes really can affect a lot of things. Like, you hear a lot of people call themselves like bachateras, salseras, zookers. Like, everybody has like their own like kind of definition for themselves. And if you're trying out different dance styles, you might realize that, maybe bachata isn't your strong suit, but you're really good at zouk or you're really good at salsa or like, any of the different types of styles. And then once you get comfortable with those, you can actually bring those into the other dance styles as well.
You learn so many different body weight shifts, body weight shifts, and like really learning how to frame yourself in different pieces of a song, or like even just like the minute changes that you feel in the tempo or the rhythm of a song, and all of those different dances that really do kind of help you with that.
Yeah.
I noticed that as well. So when I started dancing salsa and bachata similar to you, like right at the same time. With I think more of my childhood was like salsa heavy. My mom and my grandma were salseras, and so I had like growing up, I had listened to a lot more of those songs, but I think I kind of found my suits, basically my preferred way of dancing, which is and was bachata. But learning to dance salsa and putting the time and effort into actually practicing and getting those muscle memory movements helped me into my bachata. It's, I think, similar in mixed martial arts. When I started mixed martial arts, I was boxing, and then I slowly transitioned into Muay Thai, and then from Muay Thai into Jiu-Jitsu. And I noticed that each and every art kind of influenced the other, whether I learned footwork into my Muay Thai or my reaction time as well. So it's interesting that it happens in dance as well.
Well, it's also like I actually just witnessed this last weekend. One of my good friends, I brought him into the dancing. Like I made him go to Aztecs with me a couple of times. And so then he started taking dance classes. And I was at a bachata zouk like picnic, and I had only ever seen him dance like bachata and salsa. And then he started dancing to a zouk song, and the difference between his body movements in that versus his body movements in bachata was like night and day. It was just like he had definitely found that like zouk was more his speed, and like his body like responded to it. So
cool, very cool. That's like that's like an aha moment probably that he had.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, good for him. Let's move on. I want to ask you more about the scientific part of your brain. I'm heavily interested in, because I think I grew up around the same kind of thing. For me, it was a little bit about feeling like I was, again, too mathematical to like try art. And I'm finding in my early adult years, and even into my teen year, or earlier than that in my teen years, I just focused too much, or not too much, but a lot on medicine, on just getting good grades, but was never good at writing, was never good at reading. Now I find that my work is in the arts. I do video, I do dancing. I like mixed martial arts. I like all the things that are creative. Do you have any of those kinds of similarities? Do you feel like you're branching a little more into art? Do you have other activities besides dancing that are more artistic than they are, I guess, mathematical?
I've always been very split with everything that I do. In high school and younger, I was an athlete. I was a mathlete. I was an athlete. That's what we were called officially.
That's great.
My parents don't let me forget that one. I was in debate. I did orchestra. I did all the different sports. And I've just always been like all over the place with stuff. Like, you know, when you're younger, usually people are either like science and math, or they're English and history. Like there's a very clear split between like what people are good at if they're good at one. I was good at math and I was good at English. Like I've always just kind of like been borderline everything. Like it's just all over the place. I think it's probably because I was very fortunate that my parents, well, my dad was an engineer, my mom is a speech pathologist, and so they both, like, I had that support from both sides, and it wasn't like I only had one person that I could go to for help. So I had like two sides of pushing me. And then also they're both just very, very supportive parents in general. And so anytime I wanted to try something, they didn't like deter me from it, like because of my gender or because of like my age or anything like that. Like they let me try anything I wanted to. Like I played baseball up until I was like 10 years old, and then I switched to softball. And then, you know, if I wanted to go out for a debate team, they were just fully supportive of that. They would come to all of my performances. They came to all of my strings concerts from the time I was in 6th grade up till when I graduated. Like they've just always been very, very supportive, and they have just let me go out and try anything that I wanted to.
Cool. Very cool. So you had that ability to explore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you feel like you still have that ability right now?
Yeah. No, my parents are absolutely great. Support. I actually really enjoy stepping outside my comfort zone. I like to go do things by myself. Like I have traveled by myself. I have no problem picking up new hobbies. Like, you know, I started my first class for jiu-jitsu last year, and it was 100% outside my comfort zone for it. But it's always been just how I am, where I like to try new things and do new things. And I think that's a lot because of my parents.
Having that support is definitely a very important thing, to be able to find other parts of yourself that you may not have been able to earlier in life. I felt like I was so trapped in my body because I didn't quite, I'm not saying that my parents weren't supportive at all. They were supportive. But maybe I felt like the pressure was put on me, not only by, you know, family in some ways, but also myself. And I almost regret earlier in life not taking the opportunity to try those new things. But it's nice to hear that, you know, even your friends, I feel like, are very good supporting people.
Oh, yeah. No, they are. Like, I absolutely love all the people that I have in my life. Like, I've been very, very fortunate to have just people that are genuine and, you know, are there in my corner to root for me and, you know, not just waiting for me to fail. Like, I've been very fortunate with that.
Any advice for those dancers who feel like they're trapped in the right part of their brain or left part of their brain, want to get to the right part of their brain? Is there any other advice that you can give to folks who maybe are having trouble with perhaps the practical things like the mathematical parts of dance, the scientific parts of dance, the physics parts of dance that you talk about. And I'm talking about like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in anything, right? In salsa, bachata, zouk, kizomba, whatever it is. Can you give some light into maybe what has helped you?
Different instructors. Like every single teacher is going to have some different trick that works for them. You know, some are really reliant on counting. Others just fully feel the music. Like going back to my dance directors when I was on a dance team, Mariah was all about the counts and Andrea was all about musicality, and to a point where like I'd be like, oh, I don't count. Like, and obviously I had to learn to count to get better at it. But, you know, it's like you got to figure out who speaks to your language, pretty much is what it comes down to. Like there is no one right way for everybody. Everybody's going to be different. So
it's interesting because a lot of people tend to stick to one studio or stick to one teacher, stick to one class. And I think you should like support where you can, not only for the teachers or the studio's sake, but like for your sake, so you can get some steady like curriculum going, if you will. But it's also so important, I think, to cross train into different, you know, studios and different instructors and see what kinds of styles and tips and tricks and instructions they provide as well, because maybe like what you said, something might not have hit home with the way somebody framed a sentence on a basic, but homie B does, and it hits you and you remember it for the rest of your life.
Well, also, like, you know, we're one community. Like, we don't need to be I'm only this studio and you're only that studio and we can't interact because we're different studios. Like, we're all supposed to be one community and all support each other and stuff. Like, you know, obviously not everybody's going to get along, but you can still at least try to make it so that we're all together as a group and not, you know, subgroups across the board. Right.
Yeah, I think maybe what you're referring to is like probably like the clicky parts of, yeah. Agreed. That might be a whole nother episode because that can be problematic for sure. And we might be going off on a little tangent here, but I think it's important to talk about because I think on every podcast, my mission and goal is to provide ultimate like resources and tools and tips and tricks for people, but also like tell them the complete truth and tell them like be transparent to the most about what is out there and warn them about, you know, potential dangers that are out there, much like in everything else, right? Whether it be physical harm or emotional or spiritual harm, you know? So let's go into first off, what are misconceptions about dance that maybe people assume?
I mean, well, one of them is just that, you know, everybody's sleeping with each other, which granted, there are a lot of people that are sleeping with a lot of people. So, but, you know, a lot of people look into the scene and they just assume that, you know, because you're close and you're standing close to somebody and you're dancing on somebody, that like that is an intention of like a relationship or an intention of any kind of thing. You almost get like a closeness with the people that you dance with and like the people that you become friends with through dance, that it's a style of intimacy that I don't think is really common out here in like, you know, in the non-dance scenes, where you can be cuddled up with somebody and there's not an intention of like, you know, trying to be with them. It's, you know, a platonic intimacy. And I've actually had a lot of issues with like, you know, past relationships where they are uncomfortable with that because they don't understand that there's multiple types of intimacy and they are only focusing on like the romantic intimacy.
There's a lot of myths and rumors or whatever that people tend to spread about people just because they see somebody either walk into a club with somebody or walk out the club with somebody or like be intimate with somebody on the dance floor. Like, I think it's very important to nail on the head that not everybody is like that.
Yeah.
And again, sure, that exists. And I believe like there's no harm. I think if it's consensual, right? If there's consent and it's very apparent and both parties agree. But yeah, just like understanding that we're just humans trying to connect, have a good time, and basically be like kids again.
Yeah. And also, like I said, like I think it's really important, like the platonic intimacy. Like the friends that I have made through dance that make me feel so comfortable and so able to be myself around them, and it's not with any intention of anything further, like it's very, very fulfilling. And I feel like a lot of people who don't have that don't realize what they're missing. And so they end up, you know, getting latched so heavily onto like their romantic relationships that because that's the only place that they're getting that fulfillment from.
Yeah. No, that's actually really, I think macroscopically, that's probably a large part of the problem with super or hyper independence here, I think, in the United States, because you go to any other country and it's more normalized. Like it's not looked at, not frowned upon as like something bad. It's something that's like healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like cultures that like, even men on men, they kiss each other on the cheek, or like, they have no problem hugging each other and like being in a physically close position to each other, unlike here.
Right. What is the most helpful advice that you can give to somebody who is starting to dance to avoid certain dangers, I think, in the dancing? And I'll be the one who I think will just put it up blunt. Is like, there is sexual harassment, there is assault. Yeah. People look at it as like a means to abuse. And so what kind of advice can you give to people for that?
That's like a really difficult one for like, there's certain things that you can do. And then there's also things that like, I think the dance community as a whole needs to start doing. For like people that come into the dance scene, it's very important to know who you are with and to know who you are interacting with. Like stay polite, but like keep your guard up in a way, which I don't necessarily really like to do myself. But I've also had the fortune of meeting friends that I know would have my back and make sure that I'm safe and okay. And so like when you come into the dance scene alone, like it's really, really hard to have that, because you want to find somebody to connect with, and sometimes you get really lucky and you find somebody who's a genuine human being and is literally just there, wants to make sure you're okay and not actually, take advantage of anything. And then you have the ones that go in there and see that you're alone and they try to be that person for you, but realistically they have hidden intentions. So it's really hard to like give advice for like how to stay safe with it and to avoid it when our dance community doesn't even have like the actual tools for it. Like I've said this like to multiple people that like I wish that the dance scene had like an intro to dancing like etiquette almost. Yep. Like there's a lot of things like, you're not supposed to put your hands in places that make people uncomfortable. Like you don't do that. If somebody does do that, that is 100% acceptable for you to walk away in the middle of a dance. Like having people that like are almost ambassadors, as like, these are the people that are safe, that like, if you come in and you're new, like you can find this person or you can go to these people for help and stuff like that. It's like, there's a lot of work that I think that dancing needs to do before we can start putting it onto like individual people for how to like stay safe. Agreed.
I think it's like Pandora's box that just got opened and unleashed, and now there's things that are chaotic, and unfortunately people take advantage of the situation and of people in a vulnerable state. Yeah, and it's unfortunate. But I like what you said about that dance etiquette class. I think that's so important, and I think people who are listening, whether it be people who are interested in dancing, are beginners in dancing, intermediate, advanced instructors, DJs, organizers, whoever it may be, maybe could take that to heart and actually provide that as a resource for people.
I know I had like instructors back in Reno who they actually started doing that, where it was like one of the instructors down in Reno during his salsa class, like he would always say, he goes, when you're doing a crossbody lead, you're asking the follow to come across. You're not grabbing her and throwing her across. Like she gets to decide to walk across just as much as you got to decide that you wanted her to walk across. And like that like mentality shift like changed a lot of how like the dance interactions happened. So like I know that there are instructors that are willing to put that into their lessons as well, but it's like, it requires more than just like that. Like it needs to have its own class as well as like be incorporated into classes.
For sure. Agreed. Totally agreed. And I also like what you said about having ambassadors who are like go-to people or resourceful people who have been vetted, who are safe, who are watchers and observers of people who are not maybe fully aware of what's happening, to keep them safe. I forget which festival or which social I was at, where I saw people wearing these shirts that were like, I think they were called consent officers or something. It was a little corny, but it was still very important because I think those folks were actually like observing people and literally kicking people out for doing horrible shit on the dance floor. And so it was cool to see that that organizer, that person who was in charge was actually looking out for the dance community.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we should all take to heart. Like PSA, shout out to all these organizers who are putting these events, is like hire the people to be on site so that way nothing bad happens. You know, it's like it's better to be safe and have an event that nothing like that happens, where you maybe have taken a little bit more of the cost on, versus be known as the festival or the organization or the social that always has those people come.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I think all that to say, it's also, I think, important to highlight the fact that like people who are going out and like seeking that kind of attention for either sexual desire, just like, I guess, just in plain attention, I don't think that that's inherently bad. I think it's the way in which you do it and the way in which you act that makes you bad. Because here we don't shame. And I think people look at dance like in a sphere or an atmosphere where it's like, well, you can act that way, but should you? Or you shouldn't act that way, get out. And I think as long as it's acted upon and brought upon to the other person with consent, I think that's more than acceptable. Because again, it's like telling people you can't fall in love or you can't find somebody to connect with on a deeper level anywhere you go. It's like, it's just going to happen.
I mean, I'm definitely not a proponent of saying like don't go out like and get that connection with somebody and like get like a romantic connection with people, like, because that happens. It's human nature. But there's the people that are going out and that they are specifically going towards dancers who are new to the scene or are very obviously beginners, and taking advantage of the fact that they don't know better by like putting their hands on places that they shouldn't be, or like pulling them in closer, and instead of being offset, being like front to front and like grinding on them to get like their own like gratification out of it, right. Which is you can't consent if you don't know that that's not appropriate. Like, new people are going to just assume that's just how it is. And either they're going to be okay with it because they assume that's what everybody's doing, or they're going to never come back. And then we don't get people into the scene with new ideas and new, energy. Right.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you. That's when you need to sound the buzzer and kick them out. Beautiful. But, well, thank you for giving out that insight. I think it's very important for people to hear that. I think, and shout it from the rooftops over and over and over again until these things stop happening.
One last thing I want to say about it is that if you are a new dancer and you are not comfortable with something being done to you, even if somebody tells you that is just how the dance goes, that is not appropriate. That is not acceptable. You are completely entitled to your boundaries, men and women. I also know that women will do this too. You are 100% entitled to your boundaries. And if somebody is not going to respect your boundaries, you do not have to dance with them, and you can walk away, and that is not on you. That is 100% on them.
Absolutely agreed. That's going to be on replay. That's going to go over and over. No, I completely agree. That's you ultimately have the choice of who touches your body. And you have every right to say no. And for people who can't take no for an answer, take no. Learn, because you don't want to be that person, nor do people want you to be that person. So get out if you're going to be doing that stuff, like, for real.
If you don't learn to take no, people are not going to dance with you. Everybody talks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also just like, don't be a shitty person.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that hard. So besides those, I guess, cons of dancing in a way, can you share any great memories, perhaps, any memorable experiences here in Portland that really allowed you to feel your complete self when out on the dance floor?
That one's really hard to answer. I've had there's a lot of great memories that I have. I mean, some of them are just at dance festivals in general of like meeting new people and making friends with people that like you don't realize that like those are people that you're going to talk to for the rest of your life. You're always going to have some kind of connection with them. Like I've made friends from like all over the country that, you know, I still keep in contact with, and like, you know, you might not talk to them every day, but you know that they're going to be at a festival that you're going to be at, and you make that effort to go like meet up and like dance and like, you know, reconnect with each other and stuff. Specifically for Portland, there's a lot. Like, I think some of my favorite memories are just some of the birthday house parties that we've had. Like, I think the memory that always comes to mind most when I think about dancing is, I don't remember if it was Alejandro's birthday or Andreas's birthday or what, but we were at somebody's house and I was sitting on the couch with Taya, and then Malia came up and she sat on my lap. And then somebody else like was sitting near us and we're like, come on, you want to get in on this cuddle puddle. And so they scooted over closer to us. And then we ended up like with like 8 of us on this couch. And then you and Alejandro came and laid across our laps. And it was just like one big like cuddle puddle. And it just, you know, it was just so nice to feel like that love and like having that feel of like family. Because like we weren't even dancing. Like, you know, there was dancing going on around us, but like, you know, we didn't have to be dancing in order to like necessarily feel that like love for each other.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Agreed. And again, people, all platonic.
Always.
I know, yeah, people will be spreading these rumors. I swear, I'll be like walking in with a homie and they'll be like, oh my God, Ricardo, like, what are you doing? Like, I thought you had a girlfriend. I'm like, guys, like, I legit am not sleeping with these people. These are my friends. They're like almost borderline sisters to me. I like, that sounds disgusting. Like, yeah, I would ask you the same questions if you're like, you know.
Start asking it to them walking with other people of the same gender.
Oh gosh, I know, right? For real. Like, all of a sudden it's not, and it's like not a problem when you're walking in with another person of the same gender, right?
Yeah.
Like what you're saying. Like, that's ridiculous. Thank you for sharing all those great pieces of advice. Both the good, the bad, the ugly, the truth of it all. I think it's very important, again, for people to hear it. I'm curious to ask a little bit more about your story with dance. Again, I want to highlight people who I think are doing awesome things on the dance floor, often on the dance floor, and just who have really good hearts, you know. So I'm curious to hear more about you and like your goals with dancing, and where do you see yourself in a year, in 5 years, and maybe 10 years, if you do see yourself in dancing?
I definitely see myself still dancing. I don't necessarily have any real goals when it comes to dance at this point. You know, I've done the teams and I loved the teams, but they're all very big time commitment, and I don't necessarily know if I could actually give that kind of commitment to dance that I would be happy with. I'm a big believer of if you can't commit fully, then you don't commit at all. And so I don't think I could commit fully to a dance team. So as much as I would love to do a dance team again, it's just probably not in the cards anymore. My main goal is just to continue connecting with people and making friends and, you know, getting out and like getting that stress reliever, because when I dance, I am way happier than when I don't dance.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Great goals still, regardless, even if it's towards something that you're accomplishing or getting a medal for or achieving, or you just want to do it to just have fun or just be that. I think that's equally as important. Mm-hmm. So I look forward to hopefully aiding in that process and being there to, you know, see you in your happy moments on the dance floor. So thank you, Lyndie, so much for being a part of the Why We Move podcast. Again, I really value your time, your friendship, and everything that you contribute to the dance scene and the dance community. You've been an amazing person in and out of the dance floor, and I can't wait to continue this friendship and have many, many more dances.
Aw, thanks, Ricardo. I love being your friend too.
Oh.